Good afternoon from New York. We're coming on the air with breaking news. Other big stories, the King of Pop has died.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
Kurt Cobain, the leader of one of rock's most gifted and promising bands, Nirvana, is dead, and this is the story as we know it so far.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dead Famous a Pod, where we delve into what really happened to our stars, allegedly. So today I'm actually going to talk about Lois Rinna. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have probably not heard her name. Some of you may have. If you're a fan of Bravo, then I'm sure you know exactly who I'm talking about. But in case you're not, so Lois's daughter is Lisa Rinna. Now, Lisa Rinna is like a massive star of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Some people love her, some people hate her. I personally absolutely adore Lisa, and she had her mum on one of the episodes of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and they were just kind of discussing her like brief stint with like a serial killer and her brush with death, and I was like, what are they talking about? So I Googled it, and turns out she was actually brutally attacked when she was younger, and I just thought this would be a really interesting story to share. So I'm going to backtrack a bit so you understand who she is. So Lois is the mother of Lisa Rinna, as I've said before. If you don't know Lisa, probably look her up. Go on my Instagram, Dead Famous the Pod, and I'll have a photo of her there because I'm sure you've seen her face. She has absolutely iconic hair, and she actually played Billy Reed on Days of Our Lives for years and years. She's married to Harry Hamlin. He was actually voted Sexiest Man Alive in 1987. He's in Clash of the Titans, so they're a very famous family. Her daughter is Delilah Bell, a really successful model, and her sister is another model who goes by Amelia Gray, and she was dating Scott Disick for a minute there. Now, if you don't know who Scott Disick is, honestly, I don't even know why you're listening to my podcast, but he is the baby daddy of Kourtney Kardashian. Now, please, if you haven't heard of Kourtney Kardashian, I just don't know what to do with you, okay? I really don't. So, Lois herself was not an actress, but she was definitely a well-loved appearance when on the show of Real Housewives. She pretty much stole the show every time she came on it, and the fans were always asking for more. She has, unfortunately, since passed away. She passed away in 2021, but she lived a really long, happy, successful life. I decided to look into Lois and kind of talk about her backstory a bit, but there's not much known about her besides what she shared on the show and things that Lisa has talked about in interviews about her mum. But we do know that Lois Rinna was born on the 7th of June in 1928 in Massachusetts. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm sorry, I am Australian. And then by the time she died, she was living in Oregon. So it's pretty safe to say she had a quiet life, even though her daughter is this massively successful, movie star pretty much. Obviously she's not completely A-list, but her husband, Harry Hamlin, is. And like I said before, they are just a really successful, famous family. So Lisa actually went back to visit her parents while on the show of Real Housewives. And because it's a reality type of show, they filmed it. So she grew up in Medford, Oregon, and was telling the viewers and her daughters who she brought along with her, that's where she grew up. So it's safe to say Lois lived there a good portion of her life. This town is fairly small. It only consists of about 85,000 people. So it is relatively small, really. Some things that we do know is that in 1960, when Lois was roughly 32 years old, she was living in San Francisco. She was living in an apartment with some friends right near the Golden Gate Valley Library. In order to earn a living, she was working as a secretary for an advertising agency there. We're not sure of the name of it. We don't really know exactly how long she worked there, but it was enough time to get close with her co-workers, form a proper friendship, and even have a friendship outside of work with some of them. There was this one specific coworker. They weren't really the closest of friends, but he had a wife and he was always trying to get Lois to form a friendship with his wife. And then when they had a baby, he was like, look, this is a perfect opportunity for you to come and meet my wife, come and meet my baby, and we can just have a friendship from there and see what happens. So Lois was like, yeah, why not? I'll come meet your baby. Baby's cute. Everyone loves babies. Why not? So he said to her, well, why don't I pick you up from the bus stop near your house tomorrow morning, and then we can pop into my house, meet the baby, and then I'll give you a ride to work. And she was like, yeah, no worries. That sounds great. So this guy's name was David. Lois was waiting at the bus stop the next morning. He kind of took his time, so it was getting a bit like annoying. And then he finally got there. But unfortunately, pretty well from when she first got in his car, it started to get a bit weird. It was about 9:30 in the morning when he picked her up, and he just was like driving around aimlessly. And she's kind of like, what the fuck are you doing? Anyway, and then he started driving down this deserted road when she started to realize that something was really wrong. But when you're in this situation, like, what are you even going to do? You're in his car, he's driving, like, what are you going to do? Jump out while it's moving in the middle of nowhere? Like, no, like, you're stuck. Anyway, he eventually stopped the car, and then it all happened really fast. So I'm sorry if this seems like it's happening fast, but this is exactly what it was like for her. He drove down this road, stopped the car eventually, and then he actually pulled a knife out in the attempts to rape Lois. In order to hold her down, he climbed on top of her and was in the position of like straddling her kind of thing in the front seat so that he could see out the back window for anyone coming or anything like that. He started to attack her with the knife first, but she actually grabbed it from him with her hand, but I'm pretty sure it must have gone right through her hand because she mentions later that he had hit a nerve. So it's safe to say it was like lodged in her hand kind of thing. David did have a hammer in the back seat, so he grabbed it out, pulled Lois out of the car onto the ground and started attacking her with it. Little did they know at the time, though, that when David drove down that deserted road, there was a military policeman who was patrolling the area, and he'd actually watched them drive down this deserted road, and he kind of knew that no one was supposed to be there because he knew someone that lived down that road and knew that they were away. So he just kind of assumed that they were trespassing and maybe gonna like break into the property. So he decided to follow them down that road. As soon as he pulled up, he saw Lois and David on the ground fighting, realized it was a really dangerous situation, and David saw him pretty instantly and actually attempted to attack him with a tear gas shell. If you don't know what that is, it's like a little canister that explodes with gas. It's like meant to essentially temporarily blind the person so they can't really see what's going on. The officer was just a complete badass, so he just wasn't having it and fired 3 shots, 2 of which actually hit David, and he pretty much caved instantly. He fell to the floor and even ended up saying to the officer, okay, you've got me. I do just want to quickly note here to like fact check myself. Lois Rinna herself said on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills episode when she was talking about this that the officer saw them drive down the road and that's why he followed them. But a newspaper article from the time of the incident says that the officer heard a woman scream and like the constant honking of a car horn, and that's why he turned up, because Lois was doing that. She was honking the horn, like a smart woman. But either way, thank God Lois was so lucky that day, and that military policeman quite literally saved the day, saved her life. So I've posted a newspaper article snippet of that on my Instagram at Dead Famous Pod. I know I mentioned it before, so that's there if you want to have a look at the newspaper article. This just astounds me in the way of, isn't it crazy that if Lois had been murdered that day, all of these people's lives now would be so different. Like Lisa wouldn't exist. Harry Hamlin would be married to someone else. There'd be no Amelia Gray, no Delilah Bell. Like, it's just actually crazy how we are all interconnected. It's just really got me thinking of how some fuckwit completely messes up the plan that God had for one person's life. Call it fate, destiny, whatever you want, but the murderer takes so much more than we even realize when they take someone's life. Like, it's insane to me. They're not only taking that person's life and that person's future, and we focus solely on that, and obviously that's the main focus, but even for the future, whatever was destined to happen, that stupid fuckwit who's killing them is killing a whole entire generation of people that were meant to be here. I don't know. It's just insane to me. So what happened to this David guy, you may ask? Well, he ended up going to jail for 7.5 years for his crime against Lois. And then obviously he was let out. But this is where the story gets wild. Once upon a time, there was an infamous serial killer called the Trailside Killer. So he killed about 8 to 15 people. The thing they all had in common is that they were hiking in the San Francisco area when he would stalk them essentially and then make a random attack on them while they're out for a hike, jog, run, walk, whatever it is. He would hunt them down and kill them. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of all the attacks because I just don't really love gruesome incidents, but you can easily Google it. He's called the Trailside Killer. He was eventually caught for good when he changed his MO. He had this victim named Heather, and this was his co-worker. There was gossip around the office that he was a creep, but Heather didn't listen to them, and she still trusted him to give her a ride to Santa Cruz. Fortunately, though, she had actually left this guy's details with her boyfriend at the time, but it was unfortunate. It was too late for her. However, he was caught pretty quick because the boyfriend had his details. After a description of him was drawn up and his car was matched by quite a few witnesses, the police made an arrest on the Trailside Killer for at least 8 women. He was charged with 5 counts of murder, rape, and attempted rape on 31 July 1981, and apparently still remains on death row in San Quentin State Prison to this day. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. So he'd be about 90 years old now, and if you haven't already put 2 and 2 together, his name was David fucking Carpenter. Yep, the guy that did the attacks on Lois Rinna. Unfortunately, she was just his very first victim of many, and after he got out of jail, fucking good that did for him because he came out and started his killing spree after that. Isn't it just absolutely insane to think that if he had been put in prison for life after Lois's attack, then no one else would have died? I get these things are a tricky situation and he didn't actually murder her, but fuck me, he was going to if the police guy didn't intervene. So what's the difference? The MO is there, the intent is there. I just don't understand. But like I said, I get it's all a tricky situation, but fuck, this guy was even in jail at 17 years old for molesting his 2 cousins, and he'd frequently torture animals as a kid just for fun. Number one clue that there's something not right in his brain there. Hello? Lisa Rinna didn't actually find out about any of this until her mum told her when she was 18 years old. She has now publicly spoken about how proud she is of her mum for handling such a hard situation with grace. And I do want to tell you the end of Lois's story because it's a really happy one. So after the attack, Lois was actually in such a bad condition that she was in hospital for 3 whole months. She was only ever allowed just 1 visitor because her condition was so bad. That seems quite normal now because COVID vibes, but back then it was not normal to have 1 visitor. She must have been in a really bad condition for them to make that a rule. So she was only ever allowed 1 visitor, and the one chosen friend of hers to visit was actually a guy she'd really only just started dating. So she'd only met him a couple months before. They'd only been out on a few dates. It was really early days, and it actually turned out that guy later turned out to be her husband, who is Lisa Rinna's dad. So it's really a happy ending to a really tragically fucked up story. Lisa actually wrote on her Instagram after the episode aired of her mum talking about the incident, quote, "I wish my dad was still with us so he could see my mum tonight on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I am so proud of my mum, and I know dad is watching from heaven and he's so proud of you, mama. I love you." Oh my God. Yeah, I really am happy for their family of how it all ended. It could have been so much worse, and it was so much worse for so many of his victims. Anyway, it's just insane to think what could have happened, what would have happened if he just stayed in jail the whole time. Really, he probably should have. But yeah, anyway, that's all I have today, guys. It's a really short, quick episode, quick little story there. So as usual, I'm going to finish off with a movie recommendation. And this one is called Vanished. It was made in 1995. So it's based off a Danielle Steele book, and it features none other than Lois Rinna. It's like an iconic movie, and she's just the best in it. So my movie recommendation is Vanished, and let me know on my Instagram, TikTok, anything at Dead Famous a Pod, your comments about this, your thoughts, whatever. And yeah, talk to you next week.